Actually, to summarize this topic before we start talking about sustainable tourism, let's think we are explorer more or tourists. Actually, I had already your notes and feedback about it. But just to describe the answer to this question, what is the difference between or are you explorer or tourist? It may seem very simple actually because it is the same in one hand, but it's not as straightforward as we might think because both terms are often used interchangeably, but they have distinct differences that are important to understand. An explorer is someone who seeks out new experiences and knowledge. And they are driven by curiosity and desire to learn about the world around them. They want to prove themselves and to to do something that they can make something themselves on. They are and tourists are in another hand is someone who travels for leisure and relaxation, and maybe there is not a main purpose to explore something new or to participate in something. They are more looking for comfort and places that classic. I always use the term in classic tours they are using. And tour operators who work on tourism market, and they are more looking for groups, big groups than small groups. They are more oriented on classic tours. But small tour operators or individual travelers are focused on explorers, individual travelers. And where is creative tourism here? If we consider the main aspects of creative tourism, the creative people, creative process of making product, involvement, also participation in product design, and also creative environment, as aesthetic and unique environment. Of course, this is a place for explorers. This is something new, and this is not classic and not typical or already used and several times used cultural trail, but something new generation of cultural tourism. This is how it is actually described. Okay, and now we start the sustainable tourism. Let's briefly talk about sustainable tourism principles. Sustainable tourism principle, which became very important. We raised attention on this sustainable tourism, sustainable development. Actually, it's like as a new paradigm of development. Actually, it's not new. It end of last century we started to talk about. And now we are more concerned on resilience, right? It's because of the pandemic period and COVID period, we are more concerned of self security and the resilience of regions, and not to be dependent on other factors or other regions, or so that is why it is more local production and tourism as a vehicle of development of local production, including crafts and other manufactural productions, became very, very important too, because this gives regions the ability of resilience. Sustainable development are defined, and this definition is still most of popular. The development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So we are using resources and considering future generation. Yes, and the FAO has also very FAO has a good description. This is the management and conservation of natural resources and the orientation of technological and institutional change in such a manner as ensures that attainment and continued satisfaction of human needs for present and future generation. And sustainable development very often was accepted as a environmental sustainability and protection, but this is not true. Sustainable development is based on three main pillars. It is environmental sustainability, economic prosperity, and social equity. Um, and all these three aspects are considered in sustainable tourist development, because sustainable tourism considers and takes full account of current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, and addressing the needs of visitors and the industry and environment, and it makes more emphasis on local communities and sustainable tourism and approach of community-based tourism is vital. So when we talk about here, it's already known supply chain in tourism. And when we talk about sustainability and resilience also, it's very important to consider local production, and packaging of different sources and products locally, and avoid because it's reduce leakage, tourism leakage. Tourism leakage. What does it mean when tourism expenditure are not staying in one place, but it's drained to other countries, for example, and region. Mhm. For example, if there are hotels in region and the employed people are from other regions or from other countries, it means that local people are unemployed and they cannot use possibility to be involved in tourist businesses. And also, if product is imported from other countries and not produced locally, it means that tourist expenditure spent on buying the product, food, or any type of product goes to other countries, right? So at least some percentage or as much as possible should be stayed on place to get benefit from tourism, because we have in Georgia this problem. Georgia is agriculture country, but 70% of even more of agricultural product we have imported. Of course, it has its factors why it is so, but now we cannot speak about everything. But the most important is the problem is that the tourism, which is considered as a regional development, cannot benefit local people properly. In some regions, we see the number of tourists goes like a geometrical progression, but development of local social economic development and welfare of local people, it goes very slowly, even not arithmetical progression, but even stagnancy we have, which means that more tourists brings more income, more tourists leave tourist expenditure, but this expenditure is leaking, goes to other regions, not staying in one region, and it's not sustainable tourism, and it is not resilience, of course. And continues about talking about this create tourism considers actually creating creative tourism considers these three aspects of sustainability, because it has more interaction between host and tourist, and community-based approach, and the art, handicraft of any type of creative product what is presented are made by local people, presented by local people. So it's that is why it became so popular. Not only demanded product, but it is also demanded by government and regional authorities to promote such kind of alternative tourist product, which is accepted as other alternative type of product, which we discussed a little bit in the beginning of the first session today. So creative tourism is considered as an under umbrella like other type of tourism. Like here we have rural adventure, cultural tourism. So creative tourism is a part of this, and ecotourism, and it can be sustainable if it is planned and developed in sustainable way, considering sustainable principles. Here we see that mass tourism is also considered as a sustainable tourism. So mass tourism, if it is planned properly and contains this considers the principles, can be sustainable. It is not true if mass tourism cannot be sustainable, right? And here is like what we are considering when we want to develop sustainable tourism product or sustainable tourism destination. So we should have complex vision, and here we need system thinking. See the picture in broad way, let's say interdisciplinary approach. Here we should know who are these actors involved in tourism development, tourist product development, and long-term planning, because if we think about only what is beneficial today, and it is we are not thinking about sustainable use of any resources, it's not long-term planning, of course. Global local impact, here it's still community approach is considered and consider it, and principles are that polluter must pay, and that is why now many businesses, including tour operators and hotels, are the good examples, pay pollution. They have programs, environmental responsibility, social responsibility, and such kind of projects they are implementing. And this is a part of big corporations, also bigger businesses, because this is somehow compensation. They are using resourcing and they compensate in some different ways, and they are developing communication strategy for this. And tour operators, because when we have a survey, they always say that they are more concerned on environmental and social aspects now, and they have they are more focused on communities, local benefits than before. So less consumption, less production, and such kind of approach they have. And here we come to sustainable tourist value chains, because we should, when we speak about tourism, creative tourist product, and we should consider what is the chain of any type of product or type of product, right? The value chain concept itself is adapted from tourism value chain concept is adapted from value chain approach, and it is focused from the beginning of when the idea or product is brought from conception and it goes through different phases of production and also phases of delivery. Here we mean sale and promotion and sale to the final customers. And here we should think who brings the product or service from conception, who make concept of tourist product, right? They are business people who create their concept of product because they know already the tourist demand, what is demanded on tourist market, and also they know the resources of place, what is presented on tourism destination place, what kind of resources. If this place is famous for archaeological excavations or for items, of course, it is the possibility to develop archaeological tour program. If the place is close to some very distinguished or some protected areas, of course, it's good to have some eco trails. Of course, if there is talents of masters and very well preserved, unique, and resources tangible, interesting. The place has some stories to tell. Of course, it's good to invent creative tourist product and etc. So it depends on demand and resources and producer of who packs these tourists and sells on a place or abroad, right? But what are the different phases of production? Different, because the value chain says that tourism product, including creative tourist product, goes through different phases of production. Tourist product is complex, right? It's not cannot be developed by one person. It needs cooperation, networking, cooperation with other actors who are interested in such kind of tour developments. They should have some common interests to have successful common business, right? And first is design this tour, and also to promotion of these tours, and and delivery has also their paces, because it can be sold on place to final customer, or using different channels like different travel agencies or destination management organization, DMOs, or tourism information centers, or any channels online or offline channels. So it has different phases. And here I like this chart. There are a lot of different type of charts describing value chain of tourists, but this is I found it more easy to understand from this chart, that the lower part of this chart, there are actors, service providers, like local tourist board, which is like a DMO or a board in at regional level, and then comes real tourism market players. I name them like this. This is the transportation companies, like international and domestic transportation companies, and lodging, like guest houses and cottages or hotels, and hospitality of this place, and MICE organization, which means meetings, incentives, conferences, and events, and food companies, and recreational, like providing excursions and shopping. Shopping is also very important, and especially shopping of local goods and services. And if you ask tourists today, or explorers, let's say explorers, which is modern type of tourists today, what is the best sold souvenirs for them? Their answer will be most of them. They can say that is a product and some handicraft, but usable one, not just but the items what is usable. Buying souvenirs today is different what we were buying before, yeah, because one day we discovered that each souvenir is very similar. For example, we were buying from, I had a lot of souvenirs from Hungary, from Budapest and Prague, and Austria, and Vienna, and different cities, very similar. There was a Molbert, and there was a photo of some places, but when you looked, they were very similar. And my shelf was full of such souvenirs, but there was no distinguish, nothing different from each other. And one day I discovered there is not so emotional and more memorable thing I had, because I started to buy souvenirs which was usable. For example, I like to bring from other countries something eatable, which tells you about the culture of the country. For Georgia, the bestseller product is wine, Georgian wine, and also some handicraft things where we have some traditional hats, um, and also some products like spices, which is very typical for regions. And from other countries, so also we bring some eatable things. I remember from Latvia, I brought Latvian bread, for example, which was very different from others. So this is because we like to taste today, and when you taste the product from other countries, it's tells you something about the country. It's not only just to look, but taste and touch and smell and etc. So yes, as five sensor works. So when we talk about the shopping, it's important to have the shops of local production, which is more selling product. Um, Other market players, so they are the most important market players, and then we can describe it as a main stakeholders in tourism. But other players who makes possible to sell the tour, to introduce the tour, is like direct booking channels, online packages, so which are offered by tour operators, travel agents, inbound tour operators and outbound tour operators, travel management organizations, and convention bureaus, and like conference and associations. So they are tour planners. And then who comes last is tourists. Tourists who are the tourist demands are also the part of a tourism value chain. This is also another very famous graph, which is used, and once was invented by colleagues from GIZ, and still is usable. I will leave it now. It repeats what we said before, but I will leave this slide for you just to glance. So when we talk about value chain, we consider the institutions, market players, main market players in tourism. But tourism is more than only these market players, because if we look at it as a system, there are some policymakers, there are institutions, research institutions, and the universities, which create knowledge and work on workforce development on tourism market. And there are local communities not directly involved, but indirectly involved in tourism. So other suppliers, and there are other suppliers or indirectly involved, like banks or shops, pharmacy shops, or etc., which are needed on the place to as a main infrastructure, tourism, not tourism infrastructure, but main infrastructure, and they are also part of tourism system. So stakeholder, I'm sure your attendance, all what is stakeholder, and we don't need too many definition of this. They are not shareholder, but stakeholder, right? Um, so they can be a group or persons or organization who is in some way involved with a project or with a program. And here is a categories of stakeholders. like the market, it's customers, consumers, and they are intermediary stakeholders. We discussed already web services and travel managers, tour operators. There are stakeholders like policymakers or authorities like regional municipalities. They are not policymakers, but they have a power to manage on place the tourist destinations. The main stakeholders, we can say, they are tourist support services, market players, suppliers, and others are host communities, non-governmental organizations. We can group this categorize stakeholders in another way also, just using 3 different levels or 4, like national authorities, regional, state organization, non-government organization, and private sector, and international organizations. It depends on projects and when we depends on project and concept of the project, right? I like this simple stakeholder map because it also shows us who are external, internal, and secondary stakeholders. So internal stakeholders are primary stakeholders, like tourist business owners and managers, tourists also, because they are on place, because it also has the boundaries of the place, and it gives us possibility to see the tourism as a system, and also to see the boundaries of system. There are developers of tourism, product developers, and investors who creates the main tourist infrastructure, because we know that in tourist markets there is main infrastructure and tourist infrastructure. Main, like a general infrastructure, is what is under the ground actually, or water pipes, or gas, or electricity, which is very much needed. Without this infrastructure, we cannot think about tourist development because it's basic, right? Then comes tourism infrastructure, where investors comes, for example, hotel and restaurants and facilities, tourist facilities. And here are communities and tourists. So they are primary stakeholders. This classification, such kind of classification belongs to Peter Burns. And he classifies in 3 like level. And secondary stakeholders are regional stakeholders or national offices like governments and NGOs and scientists, academias, universities, let's say, airlines, but domestic airlines, which belongs to the country, and external stakeholders, which are important actors in the tourist value chain. International tourist value chain is international tourist businesses like travel agencies abroad, international organizations, some international organizations like UNEP and Global Environmental Fund, which creates also climate for tourism. I mean climate, that because there are many projects supporting mostly alternative form of tourism. They implement aid programs, developing programs in particular countries to support like sustainable use of nature resources. And now climate change is very crucial. That's this topic, and they all, such organizations, environmental organizations or rural developer organizations, use tourism as a vehicle, as a mechanism to develop or to involve people in sustainable development practices. And creative tourism is one of them, because as we discussed, we started talking about creative tourism today. creative tourism is a good way to preserve culture, nature, and to make it more functional, such cultural industry, to connect culture industry to entrepreneurship and economic sector, because to get benefit from these resources what we have, right? I think you like it because it's very understandable, as a map, stakeholders map, and it helps us to continue our discussion or our course about on system vision of in creative tourism. So when we talk about stakeholders, when we develop creative tourism, or we work on creative tourist destination development, it's important to one thing is important to know who are the stakeholders on this area. Another one is what is the role of stakeholders, what is their main function actually. Which stakeholder is busy, and what is their prime like a business, and what could be interest, or what is interest of our project from their side, and what could be interest also. And this is a stakeholder analysis after. When we analyze the main role of stakeholders, their influence of product development, and their also not only influence but their power of on the development process, and also their interest. So influence and interest, power and interest. It gives us possibility to understand, when we want to develop something, who are the key leverage factor, like key stakeholders to start developing process. And this is the complex task to analyze the stakeholders, because each person or group or organization is assessed and by their needs and requirements. And to be more clear, here I just use this picture to imagine the area as a whole, as a complex, as a destination, as a system also, and consider which stakeholders exist in this area. Because this area has resources, its attractions, like natural resources, local food, cultural attractions, infrastructure, and infrastructure like tourist facilities or general infrastructure we talk about, which is not visible, maybe it is underground, but it's important, like water pipes and etc. It has administration institutions who manage these areas, and it has, and we can say they are internal influence factor, and tourists are here also internal influence factor, but there are some external activities and external stakeholders, international organizations and policymakers and etc. But when we talk about system is not only the existence of these resources and stakeholders. We see here on photo resources, right? But behind each resources, there are persons. For example, behind natural resources, there are managers of protected areas, administration managers of protected areas. Behind cultural attractions, there are museum directors or guides or any persons who are involved or work for these cultural sites. Behind accommodation infrastructures, there are hotel managers. So we should personalize all these facilities and the resources and see who are the persons or organizations or institutions behind, right? And here comes another important questions. The existence of these resources and the existence of this person is not important. Important is their relation. And this is what systems thinking is telling us. Systems thinking components is the various actors and institutions, but it also describes the interrelation of different actors. To have more clear picture about tourism as a system, let's consider that our body, we are also system. At micro level, our body is system of different organs, right? And these organs are connected to each other. If we had a problem of some organ, whole system is destroyed and we are sick and we are not capable to do some things. So it's very important that all organs be on place to have, or sometimes we can replace or help some organs to not to make system, our organism and system functional if there is some. This is the typical approach in destination, any type of product development, because tourism cannot be successful only by one person. How creative he or she can be if they are not supported by other stakeholders, other persons, other people, it's very difficult to sell the product, because when we choose a place, just listen to ourselves. When we choose a place of travel, of destination of travel, what comes in our mind first? What kind of activity exists there? And activities cannot be developed by only one person. Activities like recreational, nature-based activities should be managed. Trails should be marked. Some interpretation materials should be exist on place. Okay, online gadgets and this mobile phones and online information are visible, but on place we need online interpretation materials also. So it should be managed by local administration, right? Or tourism board or any association, tourism association. It depends what kind of management we have. We visit one family, but for diversity, we need other facilities also to go at evenings. We cannot sit in one place a whole day and night, because we need to go out sometimes to see the cafe or some events and festivals. So who manages this? This is event organization, MICE institutes. And etc. So local, we prefer locally produced food and things, and it is produced by local farmers. So this should be interrelated. All these resources should be interrelated. This is how these connections is described, because this is just simple of how collaboration between different actors, between different stakeholders, what we name also as a social network. And social networking is very important today. Social capital is very important today, yes? So sometimes these networks are informal, and mostly in our villages, in rural areas, we don't have like formal associations or formal network. It's an informal, because first of all, in Georgia, we have such situations as community, what we name under the name, what we consider under the name of community. It's still relatives and neighbors. It's a contact, and people know each other. In region, people know each other. Country is small and regions are small, and people know each other. So informal communication is still possible. But in other countries, maybe the community has another definition. It is like a network of people around common idea. for example, organic farmers or pottery makers association or network, or like cheesemakers network, etc. So when they are yes, they have common interests and business maybe. So it's but still, whether it is easy, communication is easier or not, it's always very helpful to have one entity on place who manage these interrelations, who manage, because it gives us opportunity to avoid, to save time in such communication. For example, if there are destination management organizations, these destination management organizations take this role, the leading role, to play as a medium of between these stakeholders. And in this case, this is also stakeholder, one of an important stakeholders in tourism market, because when you count these connections, interrelations between DMOs and other stakeholders, they have the most interrelation with others, and they are the key stakeholder. And when some projects or product is developed, DMOs are main stakeholders to start working and start project because they have influence and interest also. They have influence and interest. They are also medium between government and private sector in best scenarios, because in some cases, in some countries, still DMOs are founded by governments, because many reasons. It has a reason, because it takes time to involve private sector, to enhance the trust of private sector towards such kind of organization. So this is also describes the structure of relationship between interested parties, and this we name social network. And when we analyze these stakeholders and analyze relation between these stakeholders, we can say we are making social network analysis, functional analysis actually. And here we have a photo of intermediary like DMOs, how it helps to regulate such kind of interrelations. And these DMOs are organizations who helps us in marketing of product, including creative touring product, to promote and marketing, and also to gather we like to name as a cluster we like this word also, cluster, to cluster like groups of people who have common interests and who are designing the tour, working together. They are designing the tour. So we are almost finished. We almost finished our course, but now we have time to first of all to summarize what we had today, and also to, if we have some topics to discussion, not only question and answer. You can of course, if you have question, I'm more than glad to answer, but also maybe I wait from you also to express your opinion about some topics. So first, I would like to summarize. So first session, we were discussing about some concept of creative tourism, what is distinguished of creative tourism from other type of tourism. If we still have question about it, or we need more precise clarification, please answer. Second topic was about recent trends of international tourists, about differences between explorer and tourists, and also we refer to different type of segmentation of tourism market, considering demographic, and yeah, different type of aspects. Also, we can also discuss about behavior and experiential factor, which experiential segmentation of experiential tourism market, how behavior and norms and traditions of people influence on tourism market. We still are open to discuss this question. Maybe we can discuss why creative tourism is so often described as an experiential tourism, and sometimes we use it as a synonyms. And third session, they refer to sustainable tourism, value chain of tourism, and stakeholders on tourism in tourism market. So I'm ready to answer your question, and also ready to we are ready to listen your expressions and maybe some new ideas you can add to our course.